I'm Jasmine Bibb, and this is To the Woman It May Concern, the podcast, a show where real women talk about real life, one letter at a time. High-performing women navigating identity, purpose, and becoming deserve a safe space. One without the pressure to have it all figured out. Each episode, we explore the wisdom, the wrestle, and the wonder of becoming the woman you were always meant to be. Because I believe every woman has a letter in her. One that could help someone else feel seen, heard, or simply not alone. So, let's get into it. All right. So, welcome back to another episode of To the Woman It May Concern, the podcast. As you know, I am your host, Jasmine Bibb. And for those of you who may be new to the podcast, thank you so much for making the decision to join the podcast. I hope that you'll subscribe and find a lot of value in the conversations that we have on the podcast. And for those of you who are not new to the podcast, as always, I genuinely thank you for showing up for me for each and every single episode as I pursue this journey. It is very much appreciated. And so, with that being said, I always hesitate to say, today you're in for a treat, because I feel like I say it every single time. But again, I say it because I mean it. And this episode and the guest that I have joining me today, Stephanie Trzaska, this is a special one for me. And the reason why it is so special, I'll give you in a second. So, Stephanie, welcome to the Woman That May Concern, the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Jasmine. I'm so excited to see your face and to be here and talk with you today.
Absolutely. Okay, guys. So I have to tell you how I've come to know Stephanie. And then once I tell you how I've come to know her, then we'll get into her bio, we'll get into her letter, and we'll get into today's conversation. So picture this. Jasmine is newly postpartum from having Raquel and going back to work and realizing that as a leader, a mom, a wife, a daughter, a sister, a friend, all the things, this child has just increased the workload in a way that means some things are going to have to some things are just going to have to change. And so I initially set out to find a therapist, found a therapist. The therapist was fine. She gave me some tools, but I felt like something was missing and I wasn't quite sure what exactly was missing. Like, she was helpful enough, but I felt like there was just more, right? Like when you think about therapy, maybe you see it in the movies or maybe you hear other people's stories and you just think about these breakthroughs and just these powerful moments of self-awareness. And it was kind of happening, but not really. And so one of my favorite things to do is in the city that I live in, or that Stephanie and I live in, coincidentally, there are some of the cutest coffee shops. And the thing I love about a good coffee shop is the bulletin board, where all the businesses and events and things like that are listed. And so while I was waiting for my lunch or a coffee, I always walk over to the bulletin board to see what new I can find. And that is where I saw Stephanie's business card. And so I thought, it said that her business card says that she's a life coach. And so I thought, well, that's interesting. What does that mean? And so I started following her on social media and just subscribing to her newsletters and really trying to understand what that meant. And so I felt like I had stalked her long enough to want to get an initial conversation or introduction to learn more about her. And when we spoke, She was just so gracious and kind and warm, and just not in a way that's like, oh, she's trying to sell me, but like she's a genuine person and she truly enjoys what she does. And I could see from her social media and her newsletters, I saw a lot of myself in Stephanie. You'll hear me in her bio talk about her being a mom and her career prior to her children and where she is in her career now and her businesses and all of that. And um, so from there, I worked with Stephanie in a container for a number of months. And for those of you who aren't sure what a container is, that is basically we formed this relationship where she officially became my coach and she started working to help me figure out where I was trying to go, and really understanding that at the end of the day, all that I had or all that I needed or all that I need is already within me. And it is because of Stephanie's work that I am able to do this podcast today. Um, she really changed the game for me, guys, when it comes to my confidence, my ability to see the potential that maybe sometimes we don't realize we have that other people see. Really able to help me kind of in those moments where you don't know where to turn, or when you're stuck or you're scared to do something, unearthing where that comes from and why. I always laugh because it's like the thought of, people like to ask, well, what happened in your younger years? Or, questions like that. But it really does influence a lot of the ways, subconsciously and consciously, that makes us who we are as people. And it doesn't have to be a traumatic, early year experience or anything like that. Sometimes it's just about how those moments we find ourselves in, or the exposure that we have to people and their behaviors and their experiences, shape how we then internalize and move forward. And so, Stephanie, although we no longer have a container, and Stephanie's doing a lot of other great work with with other clients, as well as just women's empowerment events, she will forever be my life coach. Like, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So, Stephanie, I thought it was very, very important to set the scene to let people know just how magical you are before we get into today's episode.
Well, I feel like I'm not going to even be able to speak now because my cheeks hurt so much from the constant smile, and my heart is just bursting. Oh my gosh, tearing up over here.
You mean a lot to me. You
Mm,
mean a lot to me.
oh, you mean a lot to me too. You just impress me so much, and you really are such an incredible, incredible woman doing
Thank you.
brilliant things. I'm
Thank you.
honored to be here. Yeah.
Okay. So now that I've told, I hope that that story, one, I hope that, not even one, I just hope that when people think about the fact that there are resources and people that they can tap into that are in their corner and they don't even know it. And it comes to you sometimes in ways that you least expect it. I hope that they push on those small moments, that they visit the bulletin boards at the coffee shops and make the connections that they don't quite understand, or at least ask more questions that otherwise they would not have.
Yes, absolutely. Mm.
Okay. So, with that being said, I will get into Stephanie's bio and then we'll get into Stephanie's letter for today. Okay. So, Stephanie is a soulful, nostalgic woman who is always dancing with the endless magic beauty in the world, as well as the harrowing grief and heartache that surrounds us. While she's highly sensitive, poetic, and spiritual, seeking time in nature and her quiet solitude, you can also find her sprawled out on the couch watching Gilmore Girls or The Office for the umpteenth time, playing referee to her wild sons, Bruce and Everett, or getting a dopamine rush picking through gems at TJ Maxx and HomeGood. Stephanie is a Leo as well as a manifester in human design. So while she's known to initiate movements and take center stage in many situations, she also falls off the radar and goes into hiding for months at a time. When she's not playing hard or resting hard, she's probably ordering a spicy DoorDash from her favorite Indian, Thai, or Mexican restaurants. Again, welcome to the show, Stephanie.
Thank you, Jasmine.
You're welcome.
I loved your invitation to write about ourselves, not the professional accolades or the way we see ourselves from that career perspective, but who we are on the inside, all of those other parts. And it was such a fun exercise thinking of myself in all of these other iterations. And yeah, it was fun listening to you read it back too.
Super cool. I think that that's so important because I think we walk around so often like we are our resumes. And it's not a bad thing because we work hard for all of the accomplishments that we have. But when you think about the work that I've done with you, or when you think about the premise for this podcast, it's about being human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's important to see the human so that you don't turn the show off as soon as you hear such and such did this and went to such and such school and they're amazing and they have
Yeah.
50,000 awards and they're the humanitarian of the year. Like, it's like, I can't, it doesn't matter what this lady's letter says. I'm never going to be able to see myself in her.
Yes. So true. So true. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So, with that being said, Stephanie, whenever you're ready, you can read your letter and then we'll talk about it.
All right, let me pull it up here. That was the one thing I'm usually like really prepared, but I was building furniture before getting on. So here, I'm pulling up my letter now. All right,
Okay.
here it is. Okay. To the woman it may concern. It will all be easier once you surrender, once you stop looking for explanations, reasons, or meaning, once you stop trying to figure it all out and make it make sense. We come here as beings on this earth to experience being human, but so often we remove ourselves from our bodies and dive deep into the mind. Of course, the body and the mind are both part of the human experience, but more often than not, we inhabit the body without truly connecting to it, without living inside of it in a knowing, whole way. Rather, we intellectualize our experience here. Something happens to us or around us, whether good or bad, and rather than allowing the body to respond, rather than sitting with that and moving through it, we create a million scenarios in our minds about what it all means, how we can improve it, how we can solve it, how we can capitalize on it or banish it forevermore. But what if we surrendered to it? What if when we were presented with a challenge, we felt the shortness of breath, the thumping in our heart, and we said, I'm here for my life, I'm here for this challenge. And then rather than thinking about how much harder our lives will be because of this obstacle, we met each roadblock, each stumble with trust in our hearts and in the unfolding. What if when good luck comes our way in rolling waves of hope and joy, we felt the butterflies, the air of celebration, and the delighted smile deep in our cheeks, and we said, I'm here for my life, I'm here for these blessings. And then instead of letting fear or disbelief of our gifts rob us of them entirely, we leapt into each and every win, each and every bit of good fortune with a knowing in our very bones that yes, this belongs to us. What if when something was funny, we laughed and laughed until we simply couldn't laugh anymore, rather than trying to stifle our giggles and make them stop? What if we felt the heart expanding in our chest and the bubbles of giddiness rising up in our throats and said, I'm here for my life, I'm here for this silliness. And then anytime we could, when something lighthearted and goofy happened, we welcomed our innocent chuckles with warmth and holiness instead of judgment. What if when something didn't turn out the way we'd planned, when we trusted something and banked on it and then it didn't pan out, we felt the confusion, the disappointment, the feelings of bewilderment, and we said, I'm here for my life. I'm here for what's truly meant for me. And then instead of wasting precious energy, time, and resources trying to get to the bottom of the mystery, we opened up to the vast array of possibilities for our life and our path ahead. We tossed our heads back, opened our arms, and knew that our divine plan was unfolding with absolute perfection. I think we are here to surrender to life, to step outside of the buzz in our brains and to allow ourselves to truly be here, to move with what moves through us and around us. We're here to deeply reside in the experience of being human, to have the capacity to feel and to participate, to be in awe, to marvel at the wonders and sit with the heartache and grief, to be in life as it's happening, to inhabit our bones and our cells and breathe in the air around us at each moment. We think that if we wonder and figure and calculate enough, that will make life easier, and we think that easier is better. But I'm telling you this, it's easier when we surrender, when we stop searching, and when we start allowing. So go to sleep tonight, hand your dreams over to God, and wake up tomorrow in a sweet surrender, inviting life to find you around every corner. Love me. Love Steph.
You know,
Hmm.
surrender.
Mm.
As I prepared for the episode, that word just kept coming to mind. Surrender, surrender.
Mm.
And I guess my first question to you would be, why, in your opinion, do you think it's so difficult
Mm.
for us to surrender? Like, truly, based on your letter, surrender. And we'll get into, if you don't mention it in your response, some of the specifics that you mentioned. As I listened to and as I read your letter, I thought, oh,
Mm.
you know, like we think about what you don't do and someone calls attention to it and you're like, why don't I? So why don't we surrender?
The simplest answer that comes to mind that I'll at least start with is we want what we want. You know, I think we have these visions of what would be easy, what would feel nice, what would feel good, whether it's recognition, whether it's the temperature surrounding us, whether, you know, whatever it is, we want what we want. And while there might be a different path that is unfolding before us and a different plan that God has for us or that our higher selves have for us, or that no one has, you know, depending on your belief, right? But I just think that we can get so attached to the way that we initially see something or envision something in our minds. And it can be so hard to say, okay, yeah, God has a different plan, or, you know, the best is yet to come. It's difficult to let go of the thing that's in your heart, you know, and typically what we want or what we envision is filled with ease and less stress. It doesn't have challenges. It doesn't have obstacles as a
Yeah.
part of it, right? And so often too, when we're asked to surrender and we have to surrender, I think it's because there is this roadblock. There is going to be this thing that we have to work through. And there's different ways that work can look and feel. And ultimately, oftentimes on the other side, it feels so good and we're so
Yeah.
grateful. But moving
Yeah.
through this, it's hard. And no, we don't want to do that. We want what we want. We want what we want.
That is very true. We do simply want what we want. And so we put up a fight
Mm-hmm.
to get it versus just letting it be. And to your point, it always works out better than we could have expected when we finally surrender. Because we all get weary and tired at some point and just say, all right, have your way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So in your letter, sometimes you have women who are speaking to themselves, current state. Sometimes you have women who are speaking to a past version of themselves. And so, my question to you would be, in your letter, are you sharing the experience with us as someone who has overcome and you found yourself in a better space with surrender and being one with your mind and your body? Or is this something kind of like a reminder that you're giving yourself you need to come back to? Talk a little bit about where Stephanie is in the letter.
Yeah, yeah, I love that question. I have not mastered surrender. Let's start with that. It's a daily battle. It's
Indeed.
it is, you know, there's different things I am willing to surrender to or that maybe I have mastered, like, yeah, in these areas. And I don't know if I could tell you at this moment what those areas are where
Mhm.
I perhaps have mastered surrender. But I think anything in life it's a constant dance, and it's a constant game that we're playing and that we're refining, that we're finessing. We're we're nailing aspects of it, and then life throws a curveball and something else pops up, and it's like, oh, okay. Even in our routines, if you have routines in the morning or rituals that you
Yeah.
practice for self-care, right? Like, you can do it so many days, so many years. Like, screw that about 21 days to a habit, because I feel like you can form it, but then something happens in life 7 years into that habit and
Woo.
it's gone. you know and so I think I'd be shocked if anyone could really claim, like, oh yeah, I have that down, right? Like, there's always going to be this something that drives us off course. um, I absolutely feel that I have integrated surrender into my life
Mm-hmm.
and into my bones. Like, I just wrote an email a couple hours before our interview and out to my newsletter community,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of said, like, hey, if you're not local, if you're someone who follows me, subscribes to me out in the world, you haven't heard from me in months.
Mm-hmm.
And the bottom line of that email, to get to the point for this, is like, it's because I had to drop a lot of things. Other things came up in
Mm.
my life, and that really, the theme of that was surrender. I wasn't intending for that to be the theme of my email necessarily, but it was, I know that different seasons pop up in our lives. And when we're in the midst of one, it often means, like, okay, if more is asked of me in this area and that area, I need to let something else recede and fall into the background, or I need to put it down and trust that I will pick it up when I have capacity and when I am ready. I'm not going to try to do it all. And so that's like a prime example of a way that I definitely embody or have integrated surrender into my life. And I won't say it's, from a total place of peace either. Like, I think that even when I am moving with surrender and I know that I have set something down and I'm letting it go, the state of the cleanliness of my house, or,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be, that can still aggravate me. Like, yeah, I've put it down. I'm going to go easier on myself. I'm not following a schedule of chores, or I'm not, I don't need to have the sink empty or the dishes done or the dust bunnies up or the laundry going or whatever it is. Doesn't mean it feels entirely good for that season when I've dropped that ball. Like, for me, it
Mm-hmm.
affects my nervous system. I'm frustrated. I'm overwhelmed. It doesn't feel good. But I also recognize that not feeling good is still better than how I would feel if I put it upon my shoulders to try to continue on with every important person and every important, to do or
Yeah.
activity or experience. And I wrote this from the perspective of, I've been wrestling myself with an event that I'm doing. And for whatever reason, I've sold out month after month after month, these women's circles, long wait lists, and without
Mm-hmm.
effort. With that became without effort, and it was great. And so those are still the ones that I've done at Cebu Play here in Cleveland Heights over the years. Sell, 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 sell. Okay. And now I'm like, I'm going to step into the near West Side, and there's this great location called the Matriarchy, and it's this woman-owned business.
Oh, yes. I've spent some time there.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's in this
Mm-hmm.
beautiful building, the Vitrolite, and it's in Hingetown, this like very,
Mm-hmm.
energizing, vibrant community. And Mike and I used to live very close nearby in Tremont. And so it's nostalgic for me. And I popped these up, and I've had this event, my first event, and I'm locked in for a year of events there. And I have hardly anybody signed up for this first circle. And I've been like, what the heck? Like, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
I just had full trust going into this. Like, of course I'll lock into a year-long contract to save money because I'm doing more events. Like, I've
Yeah.
never sold less than X amount for any events. So that's a no-brainer. Crickets, crickets. I'm putting in money in ads, this, that, whatever. And I'm feeling that, beyond pressure, what's that word? Not resistance, scarcity, all the icky, all the
Mm-hmm.
ick.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I found myself like, how much time are you wasting right now wondering why people aren't coming, or clicking on your email to see if a new order has come through, or trying to put money here, put money there? Like, how about you just put this down and trust there's a plan in place here? Not that you give up, right? Not that I'm like, oh, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to go put flyers on the bulletin boards, because look, that's how we found each other. Um,
Yes.
it's important that we persevere, that we apply ourselves, that we trust. I'm not saying, oh, I give up and I'm not trying anymore. And that's, I think, where surrender is different. Like for me, it's giving it up to God, or it's giving it up to
Yeah.
my guides and my angels, like those who are surrounding me and helping me along on my path, and saying, like, this is all a part of it, Stephanie. Like, just get over yourself, take a breath and surrender,
Mm.
So when I started writing my letter, yeah, that was what was in my heart of like, this is what you need to be coming back to here.
Yeah. I love that. I love it for a lot of reasons because you're right. To surrender does not mean to give up, but it's to know that there's already a plan. It's already done. And it's not because of you and it's not because of me, but it's because things will go as they're supposed to.
Mhm.
And that there are lessons to be learned
Yep.
in everything. And you taught me, and I say this a lot to people at work that need guidance. You think in each experience you find yourself in, there are breadcrumbs, and the breadcrumbs lead you places,
Mhm.
rather it be leading you to better understand your gifts, or leading you to understand what's next, or leading you to understand, why you shouldn't do X again and instead go left versus right. But
Mhm.
within those experiences, they're there to not only teach you something, but show you something. But it's up to us to determine if we choose to surrender and look at it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that. I taught you
Mhm.
that.
You taught me that. You did. You did.
Oh, I need that right now.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for
Yeah.
reflecting that back at the perfect time and the perfect way.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I use that thought a lot when people, even when I go through my own things with trying to build a business or just in the day-to-day of work. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what? It's
Mhm.
gonna be what it's gonna be, and I just gotta let it. I just gotta let it.
Yeah, I just gotta let it.
Yeah. So I also love it for the transparency. I love it because this platform is about just that. It's about things don't always go as we want them to, and the fact that that's okay. And so I hope that as individuals listen to this episode and maybe they're dealing with something or trying to figure out something or reshape something and it's not going as intended, that's okay. So, my question to you would be, you mentioned, and I loved this part of your letter, and I've been thinking about this all day.
Hmm.
You talked about the body and the mind often having like this disconnect. And so I think it's interesting because you think your body is tangible, right? Like I can see, feel, touch, like, right? And typically in life, when we can see, feel, touch, we know that like that's the thing. Whereas our minds are more intangible to a sense, in a sense, when we talk about thoughts and things that we can't see, touch, and feel. And so I find it interesting that we typically lead in the like we flip the two when it comes to what we should be using in comparison to what we're actually using. And so why do you think it's so easy for us to disconnect and then follow the wrong part?
Mm. Mm. Hmm. That's a good one to think about that. Why is it so easy to disconnect and follow the wrong part? I don't even know that it's the wrong part. It's that we separate them so much. That's
Mm,
maybe wrong.
mm,
If we want to say
mm,
wrong. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm.
It's that we are making them, they are separate, but they're not so separate either. Um, that we choose, it's the it's the separation, and then it's the hyper focusing on the one. At least I know that's what I find
Ooh.
myself doing, and that's what I find many of my clients and my friends, women in my community, men, like all the people,
Mm-hmm.
we seem to
Mm-hmm.
do that, right? we separate it, we break it up. And I think it's easier for us to analyze that way. And that's what we're used to doing in our society, is looking at things in this linear, segmented way, not in this like swirling creative chaos way that it really is. It's all interconnected. It's all moving and working together. And it's hard to look at that way for us. And so I think what we do is we pull it apart so we can look at the different pieces. And then because we want to bypass challenges as humans, that's how we're wired. We look at the one that's easiest to look at. And it doesn't mean it's the right one to look at. And I'm talking out of my you know what here. So this is like if this was my podcast, I would have said some choice words there. But like I'm this is from my own unfolding as I'm talking, that I'm kind of coming to this, maybe it's a realization, maybe it's an awareness, maybe it's an experiment with my words and learning. But that's what I think we're doing, right? We're bypassing the challenge and we're saying like, okay, this one's easiest to look at. And for me, like using this example of this event that I'm like, oh, no one's signing up. The easiest thing for me to do is just keep asking myself, well, why? But I'm not even looking at it that critically, or like, even if I have some answers, I'm like, well, I'm not willing to change the time or the day or the whatever. Like, but why aren't they coming? It just doesn't make sense, And so that's the neural pathways that we go down, the ones that have been like, if you think of the analogy of you're hiking and you take the path that's been trodden over again and again and again by the deer, by the people, it's easier to get where you're going by following that path than taking the one that's less traveled, right? And our brains work the same way, that we have these neural pathways that over time with routine and everything else, they get worn down that way. And so it's like we tend to do that too. Our life story is kind of like bringing us to these forks in the road. And then rather than looking in this creative way, again, we're separating it all out. And then the brain's going like, whoop, there's the path that I usually take. That's the one that I'm going down.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that. I think it's kind of our wiring and our conditioning. And then it can be hard when we find ourselves in a rut or in a space that we've been to so many times, to look at it from a different perspective. It's like those optical illusions, those, the art that you see, and they're like, do you see this or do you see that?
Yeah.
And usually you see one really clearly and you're like, but now I really can't see the other one. I really can't find it. I think it can become like that. It's sort of like, yeah, this is the only thing that I can see right now. It's like we get sort of that tunnel vision or something. And so, yeah, I don't know that it's always the wrong part. It's just like the lack of diversity of ideas and feelings and experiences that is the wrong thing there, Does that make sense? Yeah.
So then let's bring an aspect into this that I want you to share your thought leadership on, but also how that plays into the theme of your letter. So, human design. Human design has a lot to do with how we choose to process things, how we choose to approach things. And in your bio, I mentioned that you are a manifester. I myself am a projector. And so I want you to share with the listeners a little bit more about the understanding of human design, what your specific human design profile is, and then how some of this maybe human design impacts how we navigate the creative swirl or the lack thereof, because I think it's all interconnected. Like there's so many different philosophies that you could pull from to say why we are the way that we are. But for the sake of our conversation and the fact that I think that human design and the various profiles based on birth date and all of that is so accurate and in a scary way. Talk a little bit about that for me, please.
Yeah. So I'm not an expert in all of human design, but that's probably good for anyone who's listening, just to get sort of like the basics. So like you said, it has to do with your birth date, time, place of birth, and all of that. It's kind of like a blend of astrology and what do they call it? Like gene keys. There's so many different,
Hmm.
yeah, little pieces that go in, but there's, I think, 5 different types of human design. There's manifestors, which is what I am, projectors, which Jasmine is, manifesting generators, and then reflectors. And so, based on, and then within that, there's a lot more that I won't get into. You can read about lines, like I'm a 4/6, and there's
Right.
different lines, and so your lines and your human design type, among many other things, can reveal to you a lot of, yeah, like you said, almost alarmingly accurate traits and
Hmm.
patterns and tendencies, energy, like that you have operated with your entire life.
Yep.
For me as a manifester, I like, we're made to, we have a defined throat. So like talking, getting our points across with our words, whether it's through writing or speaking, tends to come pretty naturally, pretty easily. We are initiators of things. It doesn't mean that we always finish things. In fact, we're usually not meant to. We might, and that's something I still have to master. Like, I don't always pass it on to someone else. I'm like, oh, I've got the idea. I'm going to take it as far as I can. And then instead of passing it along to someone else where they can grow it and make it something, I just sort of like let it die, fizzle out, and
Hmm.
wait for the next urge. But what being a manifester, understanding that I was this and reading enough about like, oh my God, that's why I felt that way as a little girl, or that's why I always thought I was shy and anxious, but it's because I was like too much for everyone and I repressed that voice and I shrunk from it for so long. But I found it very permission giving. Um,
Yeah.
found so much power within myself when I realized my design type. And I think, again, like when we talk about our theme of surrender for this conversation, it became this thing that gave me permission to not be like everybody else. So I think 9% of the population are manifestors, something like 20% are projectors. There's only like 1% reflectors. And then the rest are generators or manifesting generators, 40, I'm not going to do the math, but like 40% or so.
Yeah.
um, and so, what's said in human design is that we live in a generator society. So, we live in a society that has been um, not necessarily built by generators and manifesting generators. Often it's said that the manifestors initiate the idea, but then the generators and a lot of
Hmm.
projectors too come with many beautiful ideas. But the manifesting generators and the generators like create it because they have this different access to energy all the time, and they're not
Hmm.
superhuman, but it's a different type of, like, you wake up with a full tank, you go to bed with it empty, that feels good. A manifester and a projector, like, we don't always wake up with a full tank. It does not feel good when it's empty. You feel
No.
completely haggard and depleted. And like, that's where I said I go into hiding for months. I really do. I'm like, okay, I got nothing, world. Like, peace out. If you love me, I'll be back.
Yeah.
It's nothing on you. Right. But it kind of gave me permission to be like, oh, okay, there's still a lot of power behind my gifts here. I still have a lot to offer the world, and I just cannot operate like everybody else. And not everybody else, but like a majority of the world, or the way too in a capitalist society, like this consumer driven society that we live in, expects us to operate. That like
Yeah.
the show must go on. And I never like subscribed to that. I never felt in my heart that was right. I always felt some anger, resentment, exhaustion, fatigue over the fact that we're meant to show up with the same energy day after day. And I used to really kind of hate on myself for it, though. I kind of asked the question, like, what's wrong with me that I
Mm.
can't do this like everyone else? And then once I learned about human design and my type, it was like, oh, I really am not that I can't push through and be capable, but I'm not wired to be fully capable in
Yeah.
that way. And I have other things that I can bring to the table. And in fact, by following my energy, I can probably bring more to the table than
Hmm.
if I try to just persevere like everybody else. So I don't know if that, I can't remember even exactly your question. I feel like I more just started talking a bit about human design and my type, but
No, that's what I asked. I asked for you to do that. You wove in your letter and how that
hmm,
worked in your letter. So no, you answered the question, and I think you're right to the point of what we all need in our energy levels. It's so funny. Today I was just looking um, during my lunchtime. I still have not done this all these years later, but you had recommended, pick a weekend You don't have to leave the city, but find an Airbnb or a hotel and just
Or
be
my
by
newest home
yourself,
studio, just come here for a couple hours and unplug.
or do something like
Yeah.
that. But you talked about the importance of just when you crave that recharge, when you crave that time alone, when you crave or you're just lacking, like it's okay to take a step back. And to your point, the hustle culture that we currently live in says,
Mhm.
no, 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 no. Run yourself into the ground. You may make a lot of money for it. You
Yeah.
may not make a lot of money for it, but you got to try.
Yeah.
Otherwise, what are you doing with your life?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's other ways to arrive, right? There are other ways to
Yes.
arrive. We don't have to all do the same thing. And anyone that's listening, if you find your human design type and you're a generator or a manifesting generator, that's not to say that the only way for you to get things done is
Mm-hmm.
to just go until you've got an empty tank and press on, because that's not the case. So I do want to put in that disclaimer that
Mm-hmm.
while there's a different access to a different type of energy, generally speaking, we all have lots of other aspects that make us who we are, health conditions, life circumstances. And so, yeah, but human design, like overall, can remind us to look at these other aspects that make up who we are, and then decide like what fits for us, what's necessary for us to continue with, and what's actually necessary for us to part ways with. So it's one of those tools, one of those ways of knowing yourself, an aspect of yourself that can support you in knowing when to surrender or
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Agreed. It's I think as we get older, you got to find the tools and you got to find the resources, and they exist. But those are the things that help you better understand yourself in a way that, oh my God, to your point, this is why I always did XYZ, or oh my gosh, is that why I do? Or one for me, before I move on to my next question for you, would be I could never understand, like in the seat I sit in at work, I can remember getting the feedback, and not in a negative way, but I was told I need to speak up more. I
Hmm.
was told you typically have the right answer, but you typically won't say anything unless, like my boss would say, unless I ask you XYZ. Well, with the projector, I learned that that is indeed who I am. I
Wait
am
for the
only going
invitation.
to I'm going to wait for the invitation because I want to ensure that what I say is of value and that it is valued. And when I saw that, it made so
Mhm.
much sense because I do know a lot and I do have a lot to say. But at the
Yes.
same time, I'm going to be mindful of the space that I'm in. I'm going to be mindful that you don't always have to talk to hear yourself talking, and
Yes.
that sometimes you do have to wait for the invitation. So, guys,
Mm.
if you're not familiar with human design, Google it.
Yep.
And then there are a ton of quizzes and just different things as long as you know certain things about yourself. And I promise it will blow your mind. And it's a tool that helps you navigate those moments when you're frustrated, or you just don't understand, or you just stuck.
Yep.
So,
Amen.
so with that being said, for your letter, if the woman listening doesn't remember anything else from your letter, what is it that she has to take away when she walks away from this episode?
Mm. Mm. So many different ways I want to go with this. I used to be a Montessori teacher before I found my way onto the path that I'm currently walking. Um, and one of the big pieces of the Montessori philosophy is that, and I still carry it very much into the work that I do with women now, is that we all have our own unique gifts, our own unique light, and our own unique ways of understanding, of coming to awareness around a concept or a topic, of integrating it into our being. And with all that, it's like you could give a child any lesson, and while it might be about integers or fractions, or something with a history or language skills, like whatever it is, you can give them the lesson on fractions, and it doesn't mean that they're going to step away from that lesson, uh, taking from it that 2/4 is the same as 1/2. there could be a whole nother thing that it just unlocks, that it opens up, that it inspires them to want to know more about or whatever. And that's the way that Montessori, that like, okay, and then actually let's follow that. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We started with fractions, but we're moving here and this is where we're going to go with it. And so that tends to be like a core value of mine, that we are all meant to take from any particular message, whatever we are meant to take from it. And so I don't even know that I can say, here's what I want people to remember, here's what I want them to take, because my belief and my trust and my hope is that whatever it evoked in you, whatever it brought forth in your body, or like as a feeling, or a series of words that formed as a thought in your mind, that's all that you're meant to take. And it might seem wholly unrelated to surrender or anything else that we covered here today, that we talked about here. And so I guess my advice then would just be, take a moment when you turn off this episode, sit with yourself, and feel into what is the thing that spoke to me. And you probably already know, maybe you don't need to sit with it, but there might have been a ping, a moment where you laughed, a moment where you teared up, a moment where you were triggered or activated by something, a moment where you said, oh my God, me too. And just like invite that to take up a little more space in your mind or in your body or in your day, and see where that leads you. That's what I would say about my letter.
Very on brand. Very on brand for you, for sure, for sure. I love it. I love it because you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It could depend on where a person is in life. It could depend on the day they had when they listened to this episode. It could make one day they could have taken one thing, and had they listened to it a day sooner, they could have taken something completely different from it.
Exactly. And that's why I rewatch Gilmore Girls in the Office. Like, those don't necessarily have like life lessons, but there's something to be said about reading the article again, reading the book again, watching the movie again, sharing the quote with someone else and someone else and someone else. It's going to touch different parts of us at different times.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, so as I was sitting here listening to you, I realized that I forgot to ask you my warm up questions. So I'm going to do this slightly backwards, guys. Normally I ask them in the very beginning, but I think I got so distracted because I wanted to make sure I spoke to how you came into my life.
Hmm.
Whereas typically I don't write a love letter to my guests at the beginning of the episode. So, so I think because I opened it up slightly different, but I think it's because it was really important to give you the credit you deserve for helping to shape and bring out the inner me in
Hmm.
a way that makes me comfortable.
Yeah.
So, with that being said, the two questions I typically ask my guests, my first question would be, if your life were a soundtrack, what
Hmm.
would song number one be?
Oh, ooh. Ooh. Okay. Is it song number one because chronologically it fits, or is it song number one because like you want the impact to be there? Like it's the
It's the
impact.
latter. It's like, what's that anthem for you? Like, what's that? That's why.
Ooh, ooh, I like it. It's hard. Mm. Oh, I'm like, oh, maybe it's this. No, maybe it's that. No, maybe it's this.
Right?
Maybe it's that. Like, what should I go with? I always tell people, whatever comes to you first is like,
Mm-hmm.
follow that thread. It came to you for a reason. Um, and so it's funny. It's not a very hypey song, although anyone who's local, the radio station I listen to when I put the radio on in my car is 91.5. It's like 40s. It's like music from the 40s. It's like
Okay.
big band and swing. I don't know. It's like comforting to me. I don't know. And there's no
Mm-hmm.
commercials, and sometimes it's annoying, but I love it. So I'm not like always, I could be a really amped up person. Absolutely. And I'm also romantic, and yeah, and so the song that came to mind is Nat King Cole,
Mm-hmm.
"The Very Thought of You." It it's really, I mean, it's a love song. It's about a person and how the very thought, the very idea of this person, just totally makes him swoon and move
Mm.
in life, in these romantic and nostalgic kind of ways. And while I'm not thinking of a person oriented with that song, it's more like life. Like, so if you listen to the song, the very thought of you, and in place of you, or where it might be that he's singing to a woman, or
Mm-hmm.
a lover, that it's for me, it's like the universe. It's this gift of life. Um,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think there's probably a lot of other songs I could move with, but that's just the first one that came to me. So
Then that's it. That's song
that's
number
my
one.
answer for today. Yeah,
Right.
it could have been a different one.
Okay. So my second question would be, why'd you say yes to join me for an episode of the podcast?
Oh my gosh, why wouldn't I? I've always said, like, you're just such a bright light, and you are so full of wisdom and inspiration. And I just see you as this, like, you are other people's courage. You know what I mean? They come to you. I know that people come to you to fill themselves up with belief in life and in themselves, and in their future in the world. And so why wouldn't I want to have a conversation with a woman like that?
Oh, thank
Why
you.
wouldn't I want to be featured on something that you create with the mission that you have too? I love, you've been doing these letters to a millennial, that this has
Mm-hmm.
been just like a part of your journey. And yeah, seeing it come full circle. And I know this is just a stepping stone of where it has yet to go and how it has yet to unfold. But to be a part of, like, to be on that, to continue to be on that journey with you in a different way, from a different place, than how we originally came together. But to me, that's just like so special that I get to bump into you on our walks with our kids and catch up and chat, but then
Yeah.
be on your podcast, and know that there's so much more to come, as well. And I know it's just going to provide so much value, um, for so many people. Just listening to your intros and other episodes of yours, like dabbling, here and there. Your voice, I love it. I love the way that you speak,
Thank you.
and the feeling it gives me. Yeah.
Well, now I can't stop teasing. Thank you. I just really appreciate your time. But two, your words mean a lot because you mean a lot to me. So your words really, really, really hit me in the heart. So thank you.
You're welcome, Jasmine. Thank you so much for having me here.
You're welcome. And so my last question before we kind of close up. If this letter had a PS,
Mm.
what would it be?
Oh, I feel like my PS has to be on brand, and that is the Little Scraps of Magic. That's my
Mm,
business name is Little
mhm.
Scraps of Magic, and the premise of that is that the PS would be keep looking for those little scraps of magic. Which,
That's real.
yeah, yeah. So that's my PS. Look for the things in life that make it worth living, in the tough moments, that bring a smile to your face, that restore your faith in humanity in the times when you need it. Yeah, look for those things that make you feel whole, that allow you to surrender, because you get caught up in the magic of being in your life.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's a good one because I firmly, in seeing your company name, I understood it. But in working with you in the various ways, there truly are little scraps of magic everywhere.
Yeah.
And so that's real, guys.
Mhm.
Look for the little scraps of magic. They exist. They really do. Okay. Well, Stephanie, I want to give you the opportunity as we wrap up today's conversation, to let the listeners know how they can find you, whether it be social media, if you want to speak a little bit more about the women's circles that you do, because guys, those are little scraps of magic as well. I think it's important for people to know, especially if they are in the city of Cleveland, that there's a lot of different ways to connect to your magic and just hopefully, if you're like, oh my God, I need some of what she gave Jasmine, help them understand how they can get some of that.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to share about that. So, You can find me on Instagram. My handle is Steph with a PH Traska. It's Trzaska. And I share I share a lot in my stories there casually, and my offerings as well. You can find me on my website, littlescrapsofmagic.com, and all of my local and virtual offerings are there, whether it's one-on-one coaching in a more spiritual way, or whether it is about, following your dreams towards creating a business or something. It's really about helping women get in touch with their inner wisdom, with their intuition, and make soul aligned decisions that support their true divine path. And then I have a podcast called the Little Scraps of Magic podcast, which is on Spotify and Apple. And Jasmine's got an episode on there, so you can find her. Um, and yeah, as far as local offerings, I do monthly circles at Sivu Play Toy Shop in Cleveland Heights on Silsby and Lee. Those are on a Wednesday night usually. And now I'm beginning to offer them monthly on a Saturday morning at the Matriarchy at the Vitrolite in Hingetown, so near West Side location. Those include a sound bath. So after you do some like introspective reflection and discussion with women in the area, and it's in a very peaceful, grounded, restorative way. I got to emphasize that. There's a 30-minute sound bath. And so you get to listen to the sounds of crystal bowls and just drift off or have sweet dreams or have visions and all sorts of incredible gifts from that. So I think that, oh, and then the last thing I'll say is I created an in-home studio. I live right by Coventry Village in Cleveland Heights, so really close to the playground. So if you're a local woman that wants to do any type of energy work like Reiki or tapping, also known as EFT, if you want intuitive life coaching, or if you want to come for smaller circles, I just got certified in yoga. I'll be doing that here too.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And sound baths, or just come and hang out. I like literally have plans for women to be able to come and just like unwind in this space in my attic. And yeah, so follow me and sign up for my newsletter if you want to hear more about all of that. Yeah. Thank you for that opportunity, Jasmine, to share.
You're welcome. Because, guys, you won't be disappointed. And I've been taking a hiatus from social media to the point of what we talked about. So I didn't realize that women's circles are now on Saturday mornings. And when you think about how you start your weekends,
Yeah.
I will find myself at some of those,
Mhm.
especially because it is a cool area. Grab your coffee from the Rising Star over there, all the things. So I love that setup for you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jasmine. I appreciate that reflection. It feels
You're
good.
welcome. Okay, guys. So that is today's episode. I hope. So I typically hope that the letter that the guest shared inspired you to write your own, and there in turn inspires you to make the outreach to me to say that you're interested to join me for an episode. If that is indeed the case, hello at oamcollective.com is how you can contact me. So I'm hoping that for the letter. But I am hoping that based on the reflection I shared in the beginning, the conversation that Stephanie and I have had today, and all that she has shared about the work that she is doing with women, that you will follow her and that you will be inspired to find the tools and the resources that you need to become the woman that you are truly, 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 and I mean truly meant to be. Why? Because you deserve it.
Hmm.
We deserve it. And so I really do hope that. I think Stephanie has given me the confidence to say that with the conviction that I hope you heard in my voice.
Oh, I
So
heard it.
there it is. So yes, I really feel like that's important. We all need something to hang on to. And it's just a matter of finding what works for us, but we got to do the work to find it. So, with that being said, guys, as always, I appreciate your support. Oh, by the way, I can also be followed on Instagram at the Overachiever Mom. And other than that, that is all for today. Until the next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.